So a lot has been happening in the Monster Hunter sphere as of late. The game recently hit overwhelmingly negative review scores on Steam. Title Update 2 just dropped, bringing in Lagiacrus, a much beloved monster from Monster Hunter Tri. And in general, it's also just kind of been a full, third of a year since the game came out, so I figure that now is as good a time as any to give some more up to date thoughts on the game, kind of look back at some of the decisions that were made for Monster Hunter Wilds and see how things have played out, several months in, as well as talk about some of those recent events. So, yeah, to start with, let's talk about the game's performance because there's not really any other way to put it but that the game's performance, especially over the last few months, has been just unforgivable. It is. At launch, the game was difficult to just get running at a stable frame rate, even on a high end machine. And at that point, if even the highest of the high end machines with brand new graphics cards and processors and whatnot are struggling to run your game, then who is your game even for at that point? You've clearly pushed the bar too far, or something has gone terribly wrong behind the scenes for the game to not run well on the latest hardware. There's future proofing, and then there's just going crazy, So yeah, and then on top of that, it's somehow managed to get even worse as time has gone on. A lot of people have reported that they might have been able to configure the settings a certain way, lower things, and whatnot, and get it to run at least a decent frame rate, and then over time, without changing any settings, it's only gotten worse. And I've heard that it's there's some issue with the way that the game is loading its shaders, and that you might have to manually delete your shader cache to force it to reload it so that it'll fix it or something like that. That it's clearly messed up, at least on PC. This isn't how you're supposed to optimize a game. Now, to be fair, in the game's credit, it does seem like Title Update 2 has significantly improved the performance quite a bit. A lot of people on the subreddit are reporting that their performance is leaps and bounds better now with the release of Title Update 2. And just speaking personally, I'm at least able to maintain a very consistent 60 FPS now. At the very least, the stuttering where it would randomly drop down to 40, 30, 20 FPS for a split second. That is at least seemingly been eliminated for the most part. I still get some issues, there are times when textures just refuse to load for an agonizingly long time, and that really needs to be fixed as well. But at least the game seems to be running at a much smoother frame rate now. Now, I have found some negative reviews that are stating that the performance is still bad, and the review is dated after the update came out. Obviously, I don't know if they actually played, because it was because the update just came out, so maybe they played right before the update. I don't know. And every computer is different, so I'm sure that for some people it might have worked and fixed a lot of things. For other people, maybe not. I recommend trying it just to see if it's better. But yeah, the performance, even with it being better, with Title Update 2, there's probably still a long way for them to go to make it really smooth on a lot of PCs, because the main problem is that the game is beautiful, don't get me wrong, it looks great, but does it look good enough to justify how hard it is to get it to run smoothly? Like I said, I upgraded my PC specifically just to play Monster Hunter, and it's still chugged at launch, and it was really hard to get running at a smooth frame rate. Should you really have to spend thousands of dollars on brand new hardware just to get a game to run at a stable 60 FPS? I think they could probably do a little bit more to smoothen out the performance, at least a little bit, or something like that. But yeah, the performance, definitely a big issue with the game still, but at least it's hopefully getting better, maybe, hopefully. So, one of the other big things that people have been complaining about in these negative reviews is the sort of pseudo live service nature of the Monster Hunter games and how they've been handling the rate of the new content drops, among other things. And well, we have this handy dandy little chart here created by Shincry to kind of help illustrate this. for us. And as you can see right off the bat, it's pretty clear that World has been getting the most updates relative to when the game first came out compared to either of the two other modern Monster Hunter games. And the other thing you might notice is that it seems like Rise is the worst off compared to them, because after Title Update 2, all we got was a few sparse collab updates, and most of these were just really basic skins, like a Mega Man skin for your cat or an Okami skin for your dog, and that's it. But in Rise's defense, while it did launch in a relatively unfinished state, it did still start with the most content in terms of monster count out of all three of these games. Like both World and Wilds starts with about 30 or so monsters, whereas Rise started with 37 monsters, got 6 more monsters in Title Update 1, which came out the soonest after launch, and then got another 3 in Title Update 2. And so while it didn't get any other major updates after that, it still had way more content for players to chew on while waiting for games like Sunbreak to come out. And so the more direct comparison, though, is to compare World and Wilds here. And like I said, I think it's pretty clear that World was getting way more updates, both major updates like the title updates, as well as the minor stuff like the collabs, just way more often. Not to mention, there's a few standout things here. Like, for example, Title Update 2 included Kulve Taroth, and Kulve Taroth introduced an entire new endgame system for players to farm on top of the existing endgame systems already in the game. So that just gave players a lot more to play with in general. Whereas now, Title Update 2 far longer into Wilds' development, and we're still pretty much doing nothing but farming for Ardean weapons and not much else. Now, to be fair, a lot of the updates for Wilds have had a surprising amount of effort put into them. Lagiacrus having an entire underwater section is kinda sick, but at the same time, some of these updates feel like they could have maybe put their efforts elsewhere. Like, don't get me wrong, the Street Fighter update was funny, the fact that they actually added Akuma as just a character wandering around the Monster Hunter world, and then made it so that you could actually use some of his moveset in-game is impressive, but at the same time, because of how limited it is and how you have to dress up as Akuma to use it, I highly doubt that anybody is going to be actually using any of those mechanics, even today, only a couple of months after that came out. Whereas I would vastly prefer things like, say, the Devil May Cry update from World, which, obviously I like Devil May Cry more than Street Fighter personally, but apart from that, the Devil May Cry update just gave you an armor set and a new weapon, and you could use that armor just like all the other normal armor. So, like, if you just wanted to have a cool trench coat for your character, then you could effectively wear Dante's trench coat from the Devil May Cry collab and recolor it and mix and match it with your other armor all you wanted. And of course, the other big problem with this is that it kind of feels like they're withholding basic updates until the title updates come out to, like, I guess, pad them out a little bit, when they really should be spreading these out a little bit more. Like, for example, the whole performance problem was really started to get bad back in May, over a month ago, and that's the kind of thing that they should have really put out a hot fix to either revert the changes to try and at least get rid of the problem for a little while, or otherwise tried to patch out the solution much more quickly. And instead of doing that, they withheld putting out the performance patch until Title Update 2, and as a result, for like over a month, people have basically been unable to play the game, and that's part of what led to this whole review bombing situation. Then on top of that, like, we already got teased that they're probably going to finally add a collect all button for the resource farming from Nata, because like it's so annoying to have to click through that menu over and over, and it's like, why is that not coming until Title Update 3, when that is just, it's literally a single button that they could patch in overnight? Like, there's no reason to withhold this content for so long. And this is kind of part of the problem, is that it feels like the distribution of resources and effort is just kind of all over the place. And, maybe if we were focusing more on adding like cool monsters with collabs, like how we got Behemoth back in World, instead of this weird jank Akuma moveset, maybe people would be happier. But as it is is right now. It just kind of feels like things are all over the place. Now, to move on to talking about the game itself, there are quite a few mechanics that are new to Monster Hunter Wilds that I can't help but feel are just not either implemented well or utilized well, and it just kind of feels like a waste of effort and possibly even a waste of, like, resources, and that might be making the game harder to run. Like, for example, take the open world nature of the game. Like, I gotta imagine that having these big sprawling maps and having all of the maps be like seamlessly connected to one another and having the ability to walk between them without loading screens, that's all cool in concept. But the problem is that A, I imagine it makes the game that much harder to run and is probably responsible for at least some of the performance issues. But B, it's not really used for anything. Like, not really. Like, during the story, you'll walk from one map to the other in like a simple walk and talk section, and that's basically the only time that you ever use these passageways to go from map to map. Because, like, why else would you use them otherwise? Like, what? Am I going to physically walk from map to map when I could just fast travel between them way faster? And at that point, I'm just looking at a loading screen anyways. Like, I'm not going to waste my time physically walking between maps. And monsters never go between maps either. Like, maybe if they made it so that the monsters could actually, like, run away from you from one map to the other, that would at least make the more open world interconnected maps feel like an actual mechanic. But because, as far as I'm aware, none of the monsters do that, it just kind of feels like a pointless add-on that never really gets utilized at all. And I mean, speaking of pointless add-ons, there's also the whole monster herd mechanic. Like, the trailers made it seem like the whole, like, having herds of monsters were going to be this gigantic, like, big new mechanic for the series. And I think it literally only gets used for, like, 2 monsters in the game tops, maybe 3, and that's it. And even then, they're not, like, end game monsters that you're going to be farming. Like, who's going to really remember Doshigama that memorably, right? Like, and they don't really even do anything. Like, all that the monster herds are is you got a bunch of normal monsters on screen and then a slightly bigger monster, and then you use a dung pod to clear away the herd, and then you fight the big monster like you would any other fight. So, like, the entire mechanic just boils down to an excuse to use a dung pod, and that's about it. It's not utilized well at all. It's only utilized, and for the monsters that are utilized for, it's only there for like a couple of them, and that's it. Like, honestly, I feel like Rise had a better, if not implementation, a better concept for what herds could have been. Because obviously Rise didn't really have herd fights, but there were a handful of monsters. Like, in fact, I believe the first monster in the game, what was it, Great Azuchi? Or something? The first monster, he would actually collaborate and do coordinated attacks with their normal Azuchi monsters that they would fight alongside of. Like, you would see the small monsters would, like, pounce on you, and then the big monster would pounce on you after it, and, like, this coordinated, like, 3-pronged strike. And, like, that's actually kind of cool, and it shows the monsters, like, working together to fight you. Whereas herds and wilds, like, they don't really collaborate with each other. They don't work together. They're just kind of a mass of monsters that are just kind of there, and, like, it's annoying to fight when they're all around, of course, still, but you just dung pod and they go away, and then that's the end of it. So maybe if we had, like, one thing that I want in Wilds, and I hope they add it at the very least in Master Rank, if they added a monster like Celtis Queen and made it so that, like, she had all of her Celtis, like, flying around and doing coordinated strikes with, an entire swarm of Celtices all attacking you at once, that is the kind of thing that monster herds should be about. Having groups of monsters like that all working together in coordinated attacks to fight the hunter while you're trying to take down their leader. That if we had more stuff like that, maybe monster herds will actually feel like a real mechanic. But as it is, again, it just feels like yet another mechanic that is just underutilized and is probably further harming the performance of the game, since you got to render all of those monsters for ultimately no real benefit. Now, the last big thing that I think is worth going over, especially in regards to these negative reviews, is the quality of life features that have been added and removed from these games. The most noteworthy one, in my opinion, is the whole like autopilot thing that you can do with the secrets. Now, in general, I think secrets are a good add to the game. You know, similar to Palamutes, I think that it makes sense for the hunter to have some kind of way to traverse these maps at least a little bit quicker, you know, especially when you have these big sprawling maps and whatnot, so that you can get from zone to zone faster. But the fact that the secrets can just autopilot straight to the monster from minute one, the problem that that creates is that there's no real reason to actually learn the maps anymore, you know? Like, I think the maps in Wilds are, for the most part, pretty good. Like, they're nice, fun, big, open maps. But I don't know where anything is on these maps, despite playing this game for over 100 hours, because I don't have to. You know, you just get on your secret and you have an autopilot to the next hunt, and then you're good to go. Like, it would make sense if after you've encountered a monster, then have the secret be able to autopilot to it or something like that. That's fine. But the fact that just getting to the monster, you don't even have to know, you know, how to navigate the map or anything, I feel like that is a bit much. I think that while I do like the secrets more than the Palamutes, because I don't really need another combatant like the dogs were in Rise, I'm fine with them just being a mount. Plus, also, I like I like the fact that they're birds more than the dogs. Not that I hate dogs, but I mean, I think it's pretty obvious why I would like birds more, you know. But but yeah, so the secrets are cool, but I think that they shouldn't have given them the auto navigation from minute one. Like, at the very least, I think it should have been like World, where at the start of the game, when you first encounter a monster, you can't navigate to it at all, and you're forced to actually explore the map and try to find tracks and whatnot until you can finally go to the monster. But uh, you know, and then later on, when you once you've fought that monster several times, then you can kind of auto navigate to the monster. And even then, I still think that even if you had like the auto navigate, it should still force you to actually like control the secret and pilot it to the monster, and then it can only autopilot once you're actually in the hunt, because then it'll just get you back to the monster a little bit faster. I think that's the balance they should have struck there, because that would at least encourage you to still explore the maps, get to know the layout of the terrain and everything, and actually learn where shit is on all of these maps, and not just make it so that every hunt starts with you hopping on your bird and then just having your bird take you to the monster. You know, I think that is definitely a place where they've gone too far in quality of life features. But on the other hand, in the opposite direction, something that has been bugging me with pretty much all of the modern Monster Hunter games is the fact that they keep adding and then removing quality of life features. Like, for example, take layered weapons, which just got added back into the game with Title Update 2 for Wilds. Why was that not available at launch? You know? Like, it took them a long time to add layered weapons to Monster Hunter World. And I'm pretty sure that was the first time that was in the series. It might have been in Generations, I don't remember. But, you know, okay, it's let's say it's the first time they were adding it. It makes sense that they didn't add it until very late in, you know, World's development. Fine. But then why was it not available at launch in Rise? You know, it should have been, like, if it was available at the end of World and everybody loved it, why was it not a feature in Rise from the start? They had to add it again. And then even more egregiously, why was it then not added at launch in Wilds? Like, they keep adding it sooner and sooner, sure, but like, why do they have to keep reinventing this one quality of life feature? And it's like, that's the thing, it's arguably a big deal. It's a really big deal actually in Wilds because of how the new skill system works. because like Wilds has like half of your skills and your more important weapon skills tied to the weapons itself now, and all of the weapons come with skills built into them. But that also means that like where previously before layered weapons would get added, you could use like basically just a slightly less optimal weapon because you thought it would look cool, and you really wouldn't be penalized that badly. But now, if you're using a different weapon just because you like the looks of it, it might have the totally wrong skills for what you want for your build, or because like the Mizusune weapons, for example, look beautiful. I love the way that most of them look, but they also have skills that kind of only really work if you're playing with the full Mizusune set, which I don't really want to do. So you kind of just can't use them effectively, or at least have an effective build at all. Um, unless you're willing to build entirely around them, and I just don't want to do that. So even though I like the weapons, I was much more reluctant to use them, even though I might have in previous games. So layered weapons really should have been added a lot sooner in Wilds, and like and I'm just using that as an example. There's lots of other examples I could pull from too. Like in Rise, for example, the biggest thing was the Hunter loadout system. Like they have, item loadouts, armor loadouts, layered armor loadouts, and then they added hunter loadouts, which basically was a meta loadout to save other loadouts in, so that you could have all of these things set up. So like, okay, if I swapped my bowgun loadout, it'll swap my armor, it'll give me all of my bowgun items that I need, and it'll give me my layered armor that I want to wear over my bowgun armor, and then I can have one for like each different weapon, and it would be way more convenient than having to go through and manually go, okay, let me equip my bowgun armor, then I'm going to go equip my bowgun items, then let me go get my bowgun layered armor, and so on and so forth for every single different set that you wanted to create. So like that was a great feature, and why is it not in Wilds yet? Like it's that kind of thing where like it feels like they're focusing their quality of life features on the wrong parts of the game. Things uh like moving to the monster faster. I don't need that kind of quality of life. I can press forward on my control stick just fine. But navigating all of these menus just because I want to swap between weapons, like that's the kind of thing that you should be adding in quality of life to reduce how tedious it is. Focus on one thing or the other. The hunting, make the hunting cooler, but make the menu navigation easier. That's really all there is to it. But yeah, there's probably a few other things I could talk about, but I think you get the general idea, and that's that, like, I still stand by my initial assessment that I think Monster Hunter Wilds is a great game, and that it is a great basis for a Monster Hunter game that I think has a lot of fun new mechanics and good combat systems and whatnot. Like, I still think a lot of the weapons are in the best state that they've ever been in, and some of these updates only keep making that even more true. But at the same time, as is with many modern Monster Hunters, it's still like it is very much an incomplete experience until the Master Rank DLC comes out. And like honestly, like unless you're a diehard like me, you might as well hold off until that comes out, because then you'll have all of these title updates and whatnot that'll add all of these quality of life features like layered armor and layered weapons and whatnot. And you'll have the master rank content to play, and you'll end up spending less money on it because it'll probably go on sale before then. And like another part of it is that, as I feel like I've said many times across many videos, is that the worst part of the games industry is the industry part. I remember not too long ago, there was like some notes from like an investor meeting that were put out, and it just kind of goes to show how insane it is and how annoying having these higher ups like looming over you can be. Because like I remember there were two questions in particular. One of the questions was talking about like, hey, maybe we can make the game more profitable by bumping up the release date to holiday of 2024 instead of waiting till 2025 to put it out. Like wanting the game to come out even sooner and even more unfinished because it might make them more money. And then at the same time, you have another investor going like, hey, so it says that it says here that people are complaining about insufficient content and optimization issues. Like, how are we supposed to address these issues? It's like, well, maybe if you didn't force the game to come out to as soon as possible to appease your wallets, like these issues could have been addressed. So I wish there was something more we could do about it, but that just kind of goes to show, clueless executives being clueless executives as always. But yeah, I mean, the game will surely be. It's only going to get better from here, but I 100% understand not wanting to play it until it does. Like for example, the difficulty problem. That was one of the biggest problems people had with it at launch, and I feel like they are addressing that pretty well. Like, every new monster that they put out has been pretty challenging. Like, I was originally going to record Tempered Chris and Tempered Steve for background footage for this video, and there's a reason why I didn't. you know? Like, these new monsters got hands, at least when you're fighting the tempered versions of them. Like, it's kind of crazy, and I love it. Like, that's what I want out of a Monster Hunter. I don't want to just breeze through it without thinking. I want to really be put to the test. But yeah, as always, I am happy to continue the conversation in the comments down below. So feel free to let me know what you're thinking about the latest Monster Hunter entry, and especially with Title Update 2. Has the performance issues been fixed on your end? I'm really curious to get more people's opinions on this. And, what do you think about the game going forward? Do you think that there should be more content, or maybe are you just waiting for the Master Rank expansion to come out? Like I said, feel free to let me know down below. And as usual, if you like the video, make sure to give me a like. If you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure to subscribe. And thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.